Yoga. I love yoga. So welcome to Rohrich Knows Podcast. I'm Dr. Rod Rohrich. I love yoga. I do yoga 3-4 times a week. It helps me cleanse my mind, my body, and helps my core. So I thought it'd be great in this season to talk about yoga and why it's so important. And so we're honored to have Julie Bach with us, a lifestyle yoga expert with us from Colorado. Julie, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. Honored to be here.
It's my pleasure. So, Julie, tell me a little bit about, how yoga has changed your life and how you got involved in yoga.
Sure. For me, I was a type A personality, and I still can be a type A personality.
I don't think you change.
No, you can. But go, fragmented mind. And a great example would be when I would pick my children up from school, and, they cut PE a lot. So I'd try to be on the phone. They'd be in the car. I'd yell at them. And then by just breathing before they got into the car, it changed my relationship with my children, right? I wasn't mean mommy anymore. I was a more compassionate, nicer person to them. So for me, it started with having a good relationship with my mind and emotions, and then having a good relationship with my children and coworkers. So yoga was just a way to try and get off that hamster wheel. And I think a lot of people can identify with that right now with, post-pandemic.
Strip that down. I love what you just said. So strip down yoga to its bare essentials, which I think is what you did. So what does yoga mean, and what does it mean to you, and how can you turn other people onto yoga? And because, yoga has so many different meanings to so many different people. And it did to me too, and a lot of people used to say, oh, I'm doing yoga, but I do it because it's an essential part of my being now, especially for my core as a surgeon. It helps keep my core very, very healthy and straight, and also my mind clean and clear. So break down yoga from your perspective. You're a lifestyle expert in yoga.
So let me start with a few different data points, and let's see how they just come together for you. So the first would be, what is the meaning of yoga? And yoga means union of yourself with the divine, however you define the divine to be in your own spiritual or religious concept. A second way to look at it would be, I know Russia's not a popular topic right now, but if you think of the Russian dolls, they're nested. So you have the big doll, and then you take off the big doll, then you have another doll underneath, right? So when we talk about the asana, the movement, the core that you just spoke about, that is the grossest level, the most physical level of who and what you are. So yoga can meet you there. And after a while, you may want to explore a little deeper and then peel off a layer. And eventually you get down to that little doll that's inside, your essence. And that is, in reality, what yoga is. It doesn't have to be a religion. It's just union with yourself, union with the divine.
Right. It's one with you, or you with one. And that's really what I did. And actually, my daughter, who's a ballerina, turned me on to it because it's a great way, obviously for exercising and staying fit. But I found, and I do a form of yoga sculpt, and it really it helps release a lot of your tensions from the day, but also helps to straighten your core. And it has so many different things for so many different people. And it's different for everybody. And I think that's what's so good, because I think it has meaning for every one of us. When you get to the mat, it's different for everybody. And it doesn't matter, the poses aren't as important. It's just being there and kind of letting go. Don't you think?
Yeah. So the yoga teacher training that I took a long time ago was called Life of a Yogi. Mm-hmm. Right. So we learned, we don't have a body for dummies, book that, or a manual like a car has a manual. So in a way, yoga is teaching you how your mind operates how it operates with your emotions, but also, hydration and sleep and eating well. And, maybe you're sensitive to caffeine. So many times yoga will say, cut the caffeine at first so you can see what your natural state is. And so that's where yoga can become a lifestyle, certainly weaving in a lot of the pillars of wellness that people talk about now, right? But it doesn't have to be. It can be a form of outer exercise. It can be a form of inner exercise, right? Inner size, or it can be both.
Right. So you said it helped you in when your kids were growing up, it helped you kind of be a better mother. Tell me more about that. Tell me.
Yeah. So, I thought at first I would take my kids to yoga class, right? Go to yoga, you'll feel better. And a teacher I worked with said, they're not going to do yoga until you do yoga, right? You have to demonstrate, how it is changing your life so that they're curious about it. So I have two boys. So we used to practice yoga together in different capacities. One would be, and I'm pretty flexible, I'm 55, but still can get both legs behind my neck. So wow. I would take a book, a yoga pose book from my teacher, and I'd say, let's choose a pose, any pose, doesn't matter to me, just choose one. And then we had to do it together. Right. So one was about the flexibility of the body, and you'll appreciate this is that yoga says you're as flexible as your spine is flexible, right? You're as healthy as your spine is flexible. So if you're stiff, you're going to have a stiff outlook toward everything, but also your body's not going to function very well. And so that's why often we start on the outer portion. So that's where I started with my kids, was on that. And then when they'd have friends over that would have a nightmare or whatever, we'd sit and we'd, breathe, and not singing Kumbaya or anything, but doing a few little breaths together and demonstrating how the breath can control the body, can control the mind, so their friends could sleep better. So sometimes they would wake me up and tell me, my friend had a nightmare. Can we go breathe? Sure. No problem.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I've never used yoga to sleep, but it certainly, I feel more calm. When I leave yoga class, even though I'm sometimes exhausted, I feel so calm. And it's always that last shavasana where it's hard to actually get up and leave. And I think that's kind of when you reach your nirvana. So, for me personally, but it's different for everybody. It's different, but I think the things we want to tell people that are listening is, should they do it and how should they start? And I think you're so right about, actions speak louder than words. Our kids especially, and you can tell them all you want, but unless you do it, they won't do it. You got to show them that you're doing it, and then they'll do it. And I think, so tell us, where would you start? If you're a yoga neophyte or thinking about it, where would you start?
I think there's a few different entryways, and yoga can be a very big umbrella, right? So there's different paths. If we're just talking about the movement path, certainly getting to know your body is one aspect, and exploring different kinds of practices. So what you talked about, let me touch on that for a moment, is understanding what you are. And that is that our bodies are meant to be calm. Right. And so we junk it up with caffeine, we junk it up with sugar, we junk it up with a lot of different things, thoughts, emotions. And the reason that many people have this beautiful calmness, as you talked about, but then often people want to go to sleep afterward. And the reason they want to go to sleep is because they never touch on that point of being so calm, right? Which is the point that you should be making any important decision, is when you're calm, right? So if I'm coming to you as a surgeon, I don't want the guy that's vegged out like this, right? I want you coherent, your mind, your body, your nervous system, so that you can scan what's going on in the environment in my body and choose the right tool and do what you need to do, right? So part of it is understanding what somebody's looking for in yoga. Some people are, needing to calm down. So a yoga nidra is more of a relaxation with props. That works quite well for many people. Some people, because they don't get enough exercise, they need that movement, right? And sometimes you need the harder movements to feel like you're getting a workout. And eventually the mind starts to calm down, and then you might want to explore more things. For some people, I work with people who are bedridden, right? So for people who are bedridden, need to make sure you can see. So maybe someone's in a hospital bed or they're older, right? So now it's just joint movements, but this is yoga, right? This is all yoga.
Right.
So it depends where somebody is and what those levers are that they're looking for. And so right now, yoga has been very helpful for calming the body. That's like neophyte 101 of yoga. So that can be movement, whether it's a class like you described. It could be a walking meditation. It could be learning how to do just basic diaphragmatic breathing to slow down the heart rate variability, to be able to be more calm. So that might be a good place to start. Now, for those people who are very calm and don't move at all, well, then there's different kinds of breathing practices to get some energy flowing, right? And to move, right? So part of that, and that happens when we're older too, as we become a little more lethargic, you might need a different kind of practice. So I would experiment with knowing your personality type, knowing what your body might need. And as you get to do yoga, you're more familiar with the impact of it, and then experimenting. Like for me, I can't do a yoga practice after 7 p.m. I'm awake then. I've got too much energy. So my asana, my physical movement practice has to be very early in the morning for me. And then to calm my mind before I go to bed is more of what you described, Shavasana or Yoga Nidra. And I'm just laying there, my legs on a chair, and just breathing. And that's yoga. And that's preparing my mind to go to bed.
Yep. I think that's a great explanation. And I agree. I like yoga in the morning because for me, it helps me to clear the air, help me focus for the day. And it really, really helps you do that. And I think it is different for everybody. And I go in very goal-oriented, and then I try also to let my mind just kind of become very clear. And, being mindful, that's so hard to do, is to let go. And usually by the end of that 60 minutes, I can let go. And it's kind of like, you're saying, man, that's a nirvana. And it kind of drives you and focuses you so different. And I guess until you really do yoga, it took me about 6 months to get to that level in what I do. I'm a slow learner, I guess. But it really has become an essential part of my workout. I work out, but I think that has really been essential, especially as a plastic surgeon, where I have to make sure that I keep my physical core really well, my C-spine, my upper and lower back very, very fit, because otherwise, it's detrimental to what I do and how I do it. So to me, it's been an essential part. It's kind of a harmony of work-life balance and making it all very synchronous. And that's what I like about it.
That's beautiful. And, it doesn't have to be a long practice. It can be just a 5-minute practice a few times a day, right?
Yep.
Just anytime you visit that calmness, your body over time wants to visit it more. And you might find that you're bending over to pick something up, and all of a sudden you're in a pose too. Yep. The body just starts to have a muscle memory. And so really it's getting out of here and dropping in and getting into the body. So many of us don't live in this body. We don't realize, that little knee pain or whatever, people don't realize that their body is constantly communicating to them because we're in here.
Right.
So it's a great way for just getting to know yourself on a completely different level. And then you can understand how to care for yourself. Right. Because you're understanding your body and your mind much better.
Yep. No, well said. I agree. It really does help you understand your body because, sometimes your body gives you some warning signs, when you start having a little pain, like I know if I have any type of ache or something, I know I need to get to my level of Shavasana, or I need to get to some level where I can make it comfortable. And I do that with morning postures in, 3 to 5 minutes in the morning and before I do anything. Before I have coffee, before I even look at, my Instagrams or anything. So I think it's a really good thing to kind of start the day and even end the day. It's a calming effect. And I think that is an essential part of starting to listen to yourself. I mean, I'm a type A, I don't think, and you certainly are, but I know I'm a type A and I always have been a type A. So it's hard to listen to your self-echo. And now I'm starting to do that. I mean, it sounds, wow, I'm listening to my own self and my own body. I didn't do that for many years, and that's probably why, I abused my body because, we would be so focused on life and practice and work and, all the things that make you who you are. And I think it's important to kind of look inward so you can, express yourself better and feel better. Don't you think? I mean,
and I think even if you think of food, so in yoga, when we eat fruits and vegetables, right, it's very much like eating the colors of the rainbow, right? So we tend to want what's called sattvic. We want very calming foods for the body. So like no white breads and popcorn, but eating foods that are going to build good cells in the body and build good tissues and build good muscles. And, we forget that relationship with our food, right? A lot of times we just eat just to get full. But even from that standpoint, just paying attention to how foods feel in your body, putting these guys away when we eat, right? What does that raisin taste like? What does this food taste like, right? Instead of just shoving it in your mouth, right? Or racing because you got 15 minutes. So eating quickly at your desk it's better just, not to eat a full meal like that. So again, like just understanding that when your body's calm, you actually can absorb the minerals and all the vitamins in your food. Then when you're stressed out, you can't absorb anything in fight or flight.
Yeah, that's well said. So, Julia, how would you summarize for someone now that we've captured their interest? So they say, okay, I want to do it. Where do I start? What do I do? I mean, do I read a book or do I go to a class? I mean, I have my own opinion about that. So what do you tell people?
Yeah.
What do you tell people?
I think part of it depends on how you learn best. So I work primarily with beginners. There's many beginner classes out there. And so you have to try different styles. Some styles are hot, some chant more, some are like really hard. So you have to find, and don't quit after the first one going, I don't know what that was. Okay, well, that's part of yoga, is being open enough to explore, right? So I prefer either starting with a beginner class or doing a one-on-one private with somebody to understand what is yoga, how does my body work, how does my body function, how could yoga be beneficial for me? So that is where I would start. You can start, a lot of people do online, which is fine too, just making sure that you take any precautions with any inversions, which would be things like putting your head down or, headstands or shoulder stands. It's best to work with a teacher because then they can adjust for your body, right? So that's primarily where I would start. And usually it's like one time a week, sometimes twice a week. And the beginner series are 3 to 4 weeks. And they go through the basic poses. And what a lot of people don't like, especially those that have been doing home practices for a while, very complicated. They don't like going back to the basics. But when you go back to the basics, you learn the right way to hold yourself, where maybe you develop some bad practices doing it online. So if you start basic, really good posture, the poses will be more beneficial for you because you won't be stressing areas that are already weakened.
Yep. I think that's great advice. When I started, I did all the different types of yoga, the hot yoga and all of and I didn't like most of them. It was my daughter who said, you would like sculpt. And it was, because it combines things that I like doing physical things, but I also like doing things that help relax you. And also, it doesn't have the impossible yoga poses, and I'm in there with the 20 and 30-year-olds and they're going, oh my goodness. But I think it really helps to help you focus. So I think that's good advice. I know during COVID, when we couldn't go to classes or have personal classes, the online is okay, but it's not great. It was okay since I've been doing yoga for a while, but you're right. If you're starting online yoga as a beginner, it probably is not. You should get, I like to be in a room. I'm an extrovert. I like to be in a room with others, and you can learn from others. And doing the one-on-one is good too. Because then the yoga teacher can say, hey, that was not a good way to do that pose. In fact, that hurts your back, And so, these are all things that I think are very important. And,
well, today I actually went to somebody else's class at lunchtime because I'm writing another book.
Oh.
And my mind was just jumbled and I didn't want to be the teacher. So I went for social and I did a restorative yoga. So more just relaxing, some deep breathing, being supported with props and pillows. And it was great. And when I came back, I was nice and calm and I could pick it up again. So middle of the afternoon or the 3 o'clock slump when people like to take sugar, caffeine, that could be your first yoga class. That would be a great time. Neat. Maybe, or if you're having a difficult time sleeping, right? Take a restorative class before bed and see how that does for you.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Great idea. So, well, okay, final thoughts. And I really appreciate the time you've taken to really share us with some incredible pearls about yoga. I've learned a lot from you. And it's kind of reinvigorating to hear, others talk about how it's been really a spiritual way of changing your life. It certainly has started to do that for me. But I'm a slow learner. I started late doing that. And you've been doing it for a long time, right? A long time.
22 years. Yeah.
Wow. God.
A long time. The mind, yoga is having a good relationship with the mind, right? And so if you can remember that if your mind is disturbed, you have no business disturbing somebody else's mind. So this is where
I love it.
Again, with my son's my guru. It was in the car with him and I don't know, I had an angry thought, right? And he's in elementary school. And we had a nice conversation until this angry thought entered in. And then emotionally, right, I went with the thought. And then I went at my son and he's like, I don't know what you just thought about, but that wasn't nice what you just did to me. So could you go take your thought over there? And, a fifth grader doesn't really talk to their mom that way, but it did help me see what was going on in my mind had an impact with his. So if your mind is disturbed, then tend to that and don't disturb somebody else. And that's the best way really to explain yoga. And lastly, the Dalai Lama or anyone that you see meditating, they have thoughts, right? So everybody thinks, oh, when I'm meditating or I'm doing yoga, I'm not going to have any thoughts and I can control my thoughts. No, the thoughts are going to continue. They're going to continue till you die. It's what is your relationship to that thought? Can you let that thought float by, or is it like a fish where you're going to be hooked, right? And now all I'm doing is I'm thinking of that thought. And so that's the deeper aspects, and it can show up on the mat. Every day your practice is different. Yesterday you did that pose great, and today you're wobbling all over the place and you're yelling at yourself internally, and and that helps you to see how do you react to different things, because every moment, from moment to moment, you're different.
Yeah.
Right?
That's so beautiful. And that's so true, because some days I go, I can't get it right. And that's okay. That's okay. That's great.
Completely
well, thank you so much for joining me.
You.
It's so great. And please leave us your comments and thoughts, and tell us what you'd like to hear more about yoga. I'd love to have you back. Thank you so much for sharing that with me.
Welcome.
Okay.
Thank you. My pleasure.
You bet.